Hi, this is again then, and we need to talk about as we descend. At least I do. I have been playing this game since the last patch, so almost 10 days. Pretty vigorously. My first impression was one of those, oh, yeah, this is not good. And that might not always be true, because I had a couple thoughts about the different perks that they introduced and how they changed some of the functionality of some of the units. But those are minor issues. There's still plenty of perks to go around to make some of the stuff good. But the two big pieces, the two big changes, now that I immediately felt was, this is not good, right? And that followed with me playing a lot of games. And I mean a lot of games. I have put so many hours into just trying to finish or finishing. I will have a couple of videos. One is about the different boss battles at Descension level 5. So pretty high up there. Just to give you an idea, can you do it and how does it feel? It's a slog and you definitely can do it. It very much depends on your unit composition for sure. I wouldn't recommend it with any vanilla, just picking the best choices out of 3. I re-choose. So I will be upfront to tell you about that right now. I re-choose many of the options that I had because I wanted to have specific units in place. But I did it. That's the most important. I did that, and you're going to have to watch it to see if I actually succeeded. Now, Descension level 5, that was right here. This one, I haven't, and I don't want to. Because now you don't have any positive benefit for anything. As you can see, with these Descension levels, it's just negatives. And given the fact that you have less resources now due to the changes and less unit composition, then yeah, why would I even bother? You know? So right now I have actively run on Descension level 2. And sometimes these two as well. Because they do add a little bit to the bottom line. You get more scavengers for elite battles. I did check that out. Elite battles are the ones that are considered hard. But it just feels overall that you have a little bit more scavengers. And that's perfectly fine. But let's go through the different changes. And then I'm going to show you. I'm going to showcase. Not only with a couple of battles that showcases the perks, but I'll also showcase you the process and why this, unfortunately, is not good. It is the same genuine feeling that I have across the entire game process. I have played it so many different times with pretty much all the different units, and I can say that there are two big changes when it comes to Votive and Guild that kind of highlights how this skews in a different way. But first, there's a new perk, which is the Empowered Warlord. I have used it, and it's pretty good. It's a stacking, fading attack too. So they changed it from they use fleeting to fading. Fleeting meant it just lasted for a turn. Fading means that it kind of decays, similar to how you do with the barriers. The barriers decays half. It looks like it's decay half tier 2, which means this one always adds 1 to the bottom line. So every turn you increase 1. Now, if you had this one on a support line, that would be something like the Arbalest, the cannon guy, things like that. It's going to slowly increase in strength. And given that the commander also have a lot of different cards that boost attack, this actually works. There was one time, one battle, I'm not sure if I'm going to showcase it or if I recorded it, where the Arbalest guy had like 3 times 15 in damage, and if you crit with that, that hurts. On that note, there is a new perk. Well, they changed 2 perks. So you have had in the past with the Arbalest guy is that if you empowered him, you got another attack. Starts with 4, becomes 2 times 4, 3 times 4, etc. And then if you increase the unit size, of course, you get 1 more in attack power too. So, 2 times 5, 3 times 5, etc. It looks like they have changed it into several different perks now. One empowers the crit damage for all. And that one is pretty good. You still have to stagger them, or you still have to expose their crit points in order to be able to do it. But you empower 3 times. That theoretically, depending on how they do the math, is like time and a half. In addition to what you already do, right? So it's normally time and a half. If you have some crit, it makes it 2, and then you add on top of that the time and a half. You can see how that kind of crits can be pretty high. I do believe I recorded that session similar to that, where you had something like 54 in damage in just 1 hit, because I hit the crit spot. That is how good that can be. And then on top of that, the commander increasing the attack every single turn. That can be devastating. A simple hit can simply just destroy a trash mob or really chunk down the damage of any boss. So there is a synergy there that works. The other one is empower the Arbalest to cause it to immediately attack enemies whenever it gains exerted. Now this one is just a simple attack. It's not the auto attack, so it doesn't multi-attack, which is weird because flurry supposedly means that you attack more than once, but it's just a simple attack based on your attack value. That means, let's say you have added flurry. So that's this easy trigger card. Sorry about that. Easy trigger that gains flurry 1, exerted 1. Okay. Exerted just means that you want auto attack and everything cost more command points in order to use. And then once that goes away, you now have another attack. That can stack. So if you had 2 flurries, then you're going to have 3 times whatever your attack power is. It's fairly straightforward, right? And then, of course, you have some cards that can remove exerted. So exerted in this case just means that you will fire a normal attack. Let's say a 4 attack power. That means a hit by 4. That not really huge, but it is something. So it's almost better that you have that to empower crit damage, and then you just use a bunch of easy triggers to get a bunch of flurries. So in the past, you had a perk, you empower it, you get more attacks. In this one, you have to go through the rigmarole in a lot of different tactical options and have the right cards in order to do something similar. So I'm not... it's something. I was totally against it before. But now I haven't come around. I just don't think it's as bad, but it's just not good. Okay? You're better off doing the easy trigger cards. Dauntless have changed that it now has empowered javelins. Empower the Dauntless to add Heartseeker to your hand. Heartseeker is pretty good. It will hit a vulnerable spot or crit spot, and it will do 12 in damage to that for a cost of 1. Now that to me is actually pretty decent. The Whistling Spear, that is a weird one that I never pulled, to be honest. And I have played a lot of games, even with Dauntless to the very end. Never pulled it. War Spear I have, that's pretty good. Now there are a lot of things with fixation, both with text and cards, that works. Like there's a perk, for example, that you can get where anytime you apply fixation again, reapply fixation, that unit attacks. So there's a lot of fixation between some of them. I do believe, for example, the Arbalest has a lot of fixation. Ranger, I do believe, have it. And in this case, there are then cards that benefit from it. So applying fixation means that everyone tries to hit that unit, but there's also cards, perks, etc. that benefits from something being fixated. Okay, so it's still a decent amount of damage and half good stagger for a one command card, so it's not entirely bad. This one changed. So the it's called the Overseer here, but the dive suit. I'm just gonna call it the dive suit, period. Because having different unit name depending if you're in the guild or the votive and it's technically the same unit, it's a little bit too confusing. They changed it from plus 50 to plus 25. So every single barrier decays half. If you have a 10 barrier, it becomes in the next turn 5. This one technically then would be 7.5. I think they rounded up or rounded down. I haven't exactly investigated that portion, but instead you decay half of the half, right? So you still lose barrier every single turn, just not as much. And it has made the diving suit really not that good. It wasn't really that good before. Hear me out. It is a tank. It has 2 in armor. Armor matters, but all the attacks are generally really expensive. There's only one time that I really managed to get up with the barrier rocket. I think it's called something else, but I call it the barrier rocket, where the amount of barrier you have, that's the amount of damage you will do. I got it up to an insane amount, 90 or something like that, and then fired off a rocket, and of course that hurts. The thing is this, with these changes, there's very unlikely that you will ever get that high. And with the decay now, even though it's half of what's normal for any other unit, it's still very unlikely that you will get that barrier rocket off in any kind of good way. The problem with the changes is not just how much less resources you have. And that can be explained in several different things how it affects you. It's just not a resource scarcity, which is the worst kind of challenge. It is also for everything else, how it affects units and the game in total. It's not that you cannot win. It's not that you cannot be challenged. It's just that it's a very bad way of doing challenges, which makes a lot of the games pretty boring. And the effect it has on some of the units is pretty stark. This is not just a matter of some changing perks. It actually matters to how units play and how fun it is. Like, I just did a game where I played with the Overseer, and the Overseer just didn't do much. Barely got the barrier rockets off. It was just trying to just smack barrier at the barrier on it so it can take some of the brunt. But here's the thing. If you run into creatures that don't care about who is in the front line, that can fire anywhere, smacking most of your barriers on an Overseer doesn't matter. It's not going to tank them. It's not going to do much. And you can't really boost its hit points because you can't increase the unit size. It would be a little bit different if you could increase the unit size, because now you can have more hit points. But no, it's a single dude. You can't do much with it. You can't increase the attack. I don't know why they made the dive suit such a single guy, because it's just not that good. It's decent, but it's only 25 hit points. And you can get Knights up to 60 hit points. You can get Vanguard up to 60 hit points. You can do so much more with those units compared to the Overseer. Plus, they have all the different attacks from cheap to expensive. There's a whole plethora of different things you can do with that. Whereas with the Overseer, you have a couple of cards that are okay. One, for example, that can get rid of all the afflictions and at the same time add a permanent for that battle armor. One. Okay. That's a decent card. But you don't want to play a whole unit for that one card. I barely play with the healer dude, the purifier. And that's because they had removed one of the units now out of the rotation. You only get 4 instead of 5. So that's another change. But let's talk about first about the different changes here of the unit and whatnot. This one is for the Technician. Technician haven't changed much, but they gotten 2 cards. Field Study is pretty good. You upgraded, I think it cost 1, gains 2 Scavengers. If you have a couple of those cards, yeah, sure. You can clean out a cave, or you can at least try to. It doesn't really have that many good cards except for the one that can double up on the attacks from the Lantern. So you take the Scavenger not necessarily because you want a really great support unit, but for the different times where you can double up on some gnarly attacks. Reboot, I never pulled it. I guess just reshuffle. It's kind of like a Hail Mary. Everything looks sucky, so I'm just gonna reboot it all. And that's pretty much it. I think this one is broken. It's stuck at $74.99. No matter what I tried to do as far as apply barriers and yada yada yada, I never unlocked the Flowstone, and Flowstone doesn't look that good anyway. It's extremely situational. I just don't know why unlocking that would be that good. Who knows? Yeah. Apply barrier to another equal to the barrier on the Lantern. The few times you do put anything on there, yeah, gosh, I don't know. And that's it. They did a little bit change around with the Ranger, but the Ranger is still awful. It's just not good. It's a terrible unit because it has so low damage, and none of the cards really. You don't want it. And here's the one thing too. When you're in the end game, you're gonna look for end game cards. Cards that can really do damage or boost your effort. You're not gonna look for the Ranger for their mediocre cards. You're just gonna have the Ranger there to do the auto attack. And the auto attack is awful because it only takes 1 armor or to negate most of the damage on it. Why? Because it's 2 times how many units you have. So you start with 2 times 3, right? That's 3 times it fires with 2 in damage. And as you know, armor removes some of that damage before it goes to the barrier. So that means that if it has just 1 armor, then it reduces everything to 1. Armor doesn't negate everything. You always make a minimum of 1 in damage, despite how much armor you have. But in the case of that one, it only needs, let's say, 3 in barrier. It needs 3 in barrier, 1 in armor, and it negates all your damage. Ranger doesn't boost up that way. It gets more attacks. So you add more unit size to it, it's just 1 more attack with 2 in damage. Okay? It's worthless. And now with the changes where you have removed 1 unit out of rotation, you get unit size instead. That means you don't have the diversity of units in order to ignore the Ranger. That's why also the guild runs are not good. They're not fun. I'm going to go in a little bit deeper on that right now, just to get an idea, because I think this is important information for the devs in particular, so they understand that it's just not about resource scarcity. There's a lot of other things that happens. To start out of the bat here. Normally when you run on Dissension 2, you're going to automatically start on 1. But they have now changes, so the first step is gone. You are no longer landing here. And that means that normally you would have 2 more expeditions. Expeditions is where you get most of the resources. In this case, too, you get an additional combat card, right? The problem here is that not only are you removing expeditions, resources that you might need later on, of things that you can pull new card, lantern cards, you can add resources to heal your unit or to upgrade cards. In this case, you go directly into the first unit you will get, okay? And if you start from scratch, it's going to be a standard unit if you don't have Dissension levels. If you have Dissension levels, it's going to allow you to pull a mix of standard or rare units. That's why I do Dissension 2. So here you have the Overseer. I'm not really interested in doing that. It's just not a good rare unit, in my opinion. You have the empowered critical that I was talking about, where if you empower it, you increase crit damage of all units. All units, not just like in the other perk where it gets to fire 1 per for being exerted. Now everyone get empowered with higher criticals. And then you have the Wayfinder. Wayfinder is very standard. Nothing has really changed. It's a nuker. It still needs to be empowered in order to be able to nuke good. But that has not changed from previously. So we are... I don't need to showcase that. Let's just pick the Wayfinder so we can actually show you what happens here. So we have a Wayfinder. So now let's take a look at this. You're going to have 2 expeditions right here. You're going to go down to this one after that. And in each section, when you go down 1 more, deeper into the cycle, you get a combat card. For Votive, it's a combat card. For Guild, it's a lantern card. That's the difference. Despite you getting a combat card for up to 4 units, I still had slots open when I just played a game where I got to the end and beat the boss. I still had slots open. I could not fill out all the combat cards. Now, that means that what I had was a lot of the original cards that I got, because a lot of my Dream Fruit is a way for you to forget a card. I had to use it to heal my units. And of course, when you do higher challenges, that's what happens. But it's more than that, because you have the resource scarcity. What happens many times is that you are forced to use some of your resources to heal you guys up. And I'm okay with that. But with resource scarcity, that's just artificially. It just forces you to, instead of having a more tactical depth, you now have to use all your money, all the copper that you pull, all the resources for mundane things. And if you run on Dissension 2, because you want the diversity of forces, instead of being forced to have 2 standard and 2 rare, which generally don't jive very good, it doesn't work necessarily well with tactics. You have the additional fatigue. So fatigue is something they added where you don't get normal healing from the innkeeper. So the innkeeper, every time you went deeper into the cycle, it allows you to heal up. You can also go in there, spend a little bit of copper. I think there's like 15 copper in order for it to heal 1 unit, I think. I'm not entirely sure if it was all units or 1 unit. But you heal a little bit. Now you can't. You can remove fatigue that way, so maybe you can heal when it goes down a step, but you might not have the copper to do so. So they have introduced a resource scarcity in a way that makes the game actually kind of grindy, right? It doesn't feel fun. You can still win. You can still win the challenge in the end, but it's a challenge of frustration rather than challenge of where you feel that your entire the tactics and strategy that you have laid out over the entire game actually plays out the way you want it. So in the battle I had, it was a real slog, real boring, and I barely got any cards that were of any use. It just me beating the end boss by slogging it out in a way that didn't feel satisfying. And you really want those games to feel satisfying. It's kind of like the difference between, say, Elden Ring, right? Which is a hard game where you get rewarded for defeating bosses, which allows you to work on defeating the next boss, etc. And everything can feel frustrating, sure, when you get your ass beat, right? But you feel rewarded for defeating the boss. But here, there is a frustration all the way till the very end, and then a very grindy end. Or you can be, as I will showcase some of the battles, where things just, boom, worked, because I had the right tools. But I had to have the right tools, or force myself to have the right tools by doing Dissension level 2, suffer the fatigue, and maybe get the units that I want. But so many times, and again, I have played for 10 days, many cycles, and for so many of the runs, it's more of a slog than it is that tactical achievement of getting the right cards. Many times you get a diluted deck of shitty cards that just makes the slog that much boring. That's just how it feels. It's hard to put the math on it, but there are so many games that I felt like, okay, I got this in the end. Might be down to the very last guy, but it never felt enjoyable because I was just plowing through mediocre cards with no strategy. It was just like, you have a machine gun and you just fire wildly into the woods. You hit something, right? It just felt like I didn't have a strategy or tactics behind it. However, so now when you start here, you have 2 expeditions, as you can see below. You get here, you prep for a mini-boss. Okay? That's true before, but here too as well. However, since they have removed a step from each cycle, a depth from each cycle, it works a little bit different. So you do the mini-boss. I think you have 2 more expeditions right here after you do the mini-boss. And then you prep for the major boss. You do the major boss, and as long as your units survive, they all heal up. So boom, you're on the other side of the next cycle, and you're healed up, and you're ready to go. But you just lost a cycle of expeditions. And pulling cards, that's important too. So you get less comic cards overall, 3 total pulls, which it feels because there are many times I haven't filled out all the comic cards and had a chance to remove and kind of get rid of the bad ones to find a good strategy. So since you lost those 2 expeditions on the other side, you go directly into another mini-boss. So there you are. You used a lot of resources in order to defeat the boss. You get to the other side. You don't get to do the expeditions that you want to do in order to regain resources, find new cards, etc. So you grind yourself through another mini-boss. And again, you probably will do fine if you know the game and you know how to use your different units, right? But now in a lot of the games I end up half damage because you are depleted resources, you're going to another boss, you don't necessarily have the unit composition that you want at that point because, again, you're unit short. And that one gets really gnarly at times. So now you have maybe a quarter of your hit points gone on your tank or things like that. It happens all the time, especially if you have to rely on the Vanguard in order to be the frontline melee, because it's not really meant to be that. It's more of a skirmish unit. And since you have not maybe pulled your tank yet to kind of what you want to move towards the end game, you are not forced to use the Vanguard for a lot of that, and it gets kind of beat up in the process, unless you have great cards, right? And after that, you have expeditions. Now, you have some mangled troops. They're all fatigued. You can't heal them up because you can't go into the innkeeper and heal them up. And you now start to really do, instead of challenge yourself, you start doing the very mediocre missions, just trying to survive. And what happens then in that case is that now you're grinding on your favor, because in order to save your units from taking too much damage, you're going to use a lot of high-end cars that cost a lot of favor that you would normally save for the big battles, right? Now you're using a lot of the favor just in order to survive a stupid cycle of not taking too much damage. So resource scarcity has an actual result in the end. And that is that so many, unless you get lucky with the right cards and all the different things falling into line, is that you end up with a worse unit composition, worse cards on the units. You don't have the chance to really put together the tactics that you know is going to be good for you. And it just doesn't feel fun. Now, it gets worse for Guild. Guild used to be the one that was a little bit easier. You had plenty of flow. Flow is kind of what allows you to activate most of the cards. However, as I explained, with this one you get combat cards. Every step you get the new combat card that you can pull for all your units. So many times you will have a full complement of combat cards, 8 per unit. Sometimes, unfortunately, because of this resource scarcity thing, and that you will go into the very end fight in cycle 3 without the full complement cards. It happened a couple of times with votive, but not as often because that's what you do. On the other hand, you don't get to pull lantern cards as much. So you have a really odd situation where you have a lot of combat cards that you can't really use, and you don't have enough protection from lantern cards because you don't pull as many. Resource scarcity means that you have really poorly composed decks in many ways. And what happens with that is that I think it adds a little bit more to the slog. You don't have that choice of decks that you choose to do. It's more like, yeah, I got what I got, right? I'm going into this major battle with the half-baked stuff, no particular strategy. I might have the units that I want because of, how I play the game. But on the other hand, I really don't have the composition of what I want out of it. So you might have low-end barriers that you're going to have to slog out. You burn all your command points on stuff like that. And because you don't have the extra pulls of lantern cards in particular, you might not get the composition of cards that is good. Like some barriers, some combat cards. You might be front-loaded with so many combat cards that once the enemy attacks you, you have barely any barriers, any protection, and you take more grievous damage. That really is the effect of not only truncating the game, removing cycles to inflate resource scarcity, but also how the votive and the guild plays. So let's go and check out the guild before I showcase those new perks. Just gonna start here. So what is the difference with guild? Well, in votive, you have a couple units that works really well together. The commander, for example, if you choose to run him, works very well, as you can see, you're gonna see in some of the combats, in order to boost the attack power. What that means more broadly is that that kind of synergy will take lower end units like the Arbalest and the Ranger and even making them okay, because it can increase attack power. Now the Ranger doesn't exist in votive, but it can take shooter kind of stuff from the back line and the support line to boost them up. And it can also throw a bunch of card that makes the frontline units pretty decent. So the commander is one of those things that can both fight, and it has a couple of decent fighting cards like the chainsaw, but it can also do other things. It doesn't make the commander super. You still have to have the perk in order to make that to work. But at least it has a synergy unit like that that can tie it together. Technician is not it. You know, the guild one has the biggest issue in this is because, again, here, you draw a lantern card, same amount of fewer cycles. Now you're going to get a unit first. So that's going to be the standard choice. Chemist. Let's say we just do the technician. Okay. Here we got the technician. That's the only good card it has. Kraken Gauntlets is very mediocre, low damage. In order to apply shock, you have to have max flow, which doesn't really happen that often in the beginning. Improvise, very situational. Not a super unit. It just have that one card that makes it really fun. So every cycle now, you're gonna get more lantern cards. So you get really front loaded with lantern cards. You're gonna have tons of lantern cards, but you're gonna have less combat cards. So many times you will end up like this one is just lousy. So you might have full cards of that, maybe. But the early units will have probably a full complement, but not what cards you necessarily want to have, because of the fact that, again, resource scarcity means that you're not going to use the Dream Fruit necessarily for getting rid of cards that are not good in the chance of getting a better one, but rather just heal your units, for example. So if you have a mediocre start, or if over the game you don't really get the best cards that you need, then that's gonna further lower the chance for, I mean, you might win, but you're not gonna win in the way you want to win. Also, since you're not pulling as many combat cards, then the later units you receive, the other two over the course of 2 cycles, they're not going to necessarily have a full complement of cards. And that means that you're going to be drenched in lantern cards, but less so with cards that help your units. That's why what I feel is that it's a worse with the guild. It's so grindy with the guild now. You don't have good strategies. You don't have good synergies. And you're just inundated with just tons of low-key, terrible barrier cards and some of the other stuff that don't work together. And your units just doesn't perform as well. Very sloggy. Like this setup right now with Technician and a Ranger is going to be a terrible, boring fight. Why? The Ranger is not that good. And the Technician is not that special. It only has that one card that can double up on attacks. So it just feels like you blow through resources. Because if you notice, I don't have the Bell Maiden to offset the cost. So the only good card I have is this one. And it always cost favor. That means in order for me to use that, I'm going to have to use favor. And some of the lantern cards that you really want to use with this one, because it doubles up on each attack, that can be cards that has high favor cost. Which means in order to double up, I spend and blow through a lot of favor in order to make that one work really nicely. So the effect is the first couple of steps of doing expeditions are extremely grindy, depending on the unit composition. And if you then get the Bell Maiden offhand, if you do like the Essential level 2s and you get the Bell Maiden that offsets favor cost, Lord, have mercy. Because most of your DPS is now going to depend on the Ranger. This guy, which has suck-ass cards that are expensive, that has 2x3 in damage, and you are going to run into many enemies that has at least one in armor. It's so horribly grindy. You have to deal with this one and try to figure out tactics with this one. And you don't want to put it up in guard zone. I, for the life of me, don't understand why this one can't shoot from the guard zone. As far as an auto attack, Arbalest can, not this guy. Apparently, when he gets up to the guard zone, he cannot auto attack with his rifle. Don't know why, but that's just what it is. So you don't put this guy up in a guard zone because you are reliant on the auto attack. That's additional DPS in order to grind something down. So they have tons of cards like these for the Ranger where it helps you when you're up in a guard zone. They are one that do 20 in damage and move you back to the support zone. But you have to be in the guard zone first. Would you move this guy up here if you can't do an auto attack with him? I wouldn't. And also, using this one exerts it, which means it can't use the auto attack. It's just fundamentally so poor amount of I would say garbage, because 9 in damage for 2 in cost of flow for this kind of effect is horrible. There are other cards out there that just cost 1 in command or flow or whatnot that do almost as much, if not more damage. You know, you have, for example, the Breaching Slash for the Vanguard. 11 in damage, 1 command cost, you get exerted. But if you have the perk that always gives you 1 more attack power, stacking attack power, if you're exerted, you gladly use it. 11 in damage? Hell yeah, bring it on. This one, 9 in damage. Oh, you hit twice if you're up in the guard zone where you can't normally auto attack, and you get exerted. I don't get it. I do not quick draw a cost in favor. You draw offensive cards if able. Okay, cool. But it costs 1 in favor. So if you're using this with a technician, why would you want to use the quick draw? It's one way you're getting common cards that are not that good, but you know, that's the way it is. So the overall experience that I had in so many times I played it is that I end up with units that don't have all the cards. I also have a much grindier end because there are now good synergy. Everything just feels like Guild has fallen behind and it's not good. Less combat cards, plethora of lantern cards, grind on the resource, and some of the worst units, period. You removed the 1 unit, so now you only have 4. That means for most major battles you have to use all of the unit, and the Ranger is one of them. The Ranger. It's horrible. The Arbalest, at least, will do as many attacks as it has attack power. You can boost up the Arbalest attack power pretty good. You can't really do it with a Ranger there are some, I'm thinking very hard, that can add a little bit more attack power. But why would you put it on the Ranger? That's my contention. But enough bitch in a moment. You obviously can still win in the game. What I'm saying is that it just feels like winning is more by attrition rather than fun. You don't feel there's a strategy behind it. You simply just fire the machine gun into your dark wood and hope you hit something. But now I'm going to showcase some of the perks and what were successful attacks. And so you get an idea how the perks work. And there's still a lot of fun to be had. Look, this is early access. So obviously things will change. I just hope they can change it back to be more where you are having a strategy, less than the game controls what will happen in the very end. There's right now too many random components. You have less control over the situation and therefore not as much fun in the end game. And honestly, who wants less game? Removing those steps out of cycles, maybe there's a grand scheme of going forward, adding more cycles, and that will all work out somehow. But no one wants less game. And that's what you have here. But anyway, let's check out some battles. Okay, so we're going to check out a battle. This is an end battle. This is the Cycle 3 end boss. And we are going to showcase the 3 perks that are relevant to this update. There are a few other perks too. But this one is going to show how the commander can stack up attack power for anyone in the support row, or even the front row if you want to put them there. But also, when you empower the Vanguard, or anything that you're going to have in the front, such as a knight or the diving suit, that how you have more or less a bunch of stacking powers with the commander. So he has cards that can boost temporarily attack power, and then of course you have his stacking ability over time as far as in the support row. So that's going to show here a little bit. Right now I'm just trying to survive the initial hit by adding as much barrier. Unfortunately, with this haul I didn't get the converted barriers to the better ones. These are just 4. There's one guy that can give you all of those tiny barriers become 6. And sorry, not the Arbalest guy. I'm talking about the stacking for the cannon guy. So that's what you're going to see here. Now, the good thing with the cannon guy is that you can empower it to get splash damage, which of course doesn't matter when you're playing an end boss. But as you can see, he's already getting a little bit more attack power. Now, as soon as I get to boost up the commander, that's when the big hits started. Now, there is a reason here why I try to empower the lantern as quickly as possible. There are a couple of things like a tech that can do for you right off the bat. Is that anytime you hit with a lantern card, it's going to also add fire damage to every single weapon. So every attack then gets a nice amount of stacking fire dots. On this guy, it's a little bit trickier because some of the heads are completely immune of any debuff. So when you get to that head, then it's just raw DPS in order to get him down as quickly as possible and stagger him. In other cases, unfortunately, like the Angry Head, that means that as soon as as you can see around here with his face, when that is more than the attack that he's doing, like in this case 15 in damage, then it automatically increases the attack power of that boss. So once you get over that, you're gonna get a little bit screwed. Now it switched head to where it has 99 in armor. That means most of your attacks won't do any damage, but all the debuffs and all the stagger and all that will work. So that's when you can start really attacking as much as possible, just get him to stagger again. It's just a matter of just pretty much firing off every single gun you have or weapon you have while trying to survive the incoming damage. Now the good thing with this boss is that even though he has those different heads, you have to think about different tactical things to do. He doesn't have like the major things like parasites. So another end boss, which looks like this huge Mothman, which is called a Warlock, I think. He works a little bit different, or it works a little bit different. He does a lot of things. It can infest you with parasites that hit you for a humongous amount of damage every single time. They don't fade away. It's not like the pestilence you can get from either minor creatures. It just stays with you. I would assume that you can cleanse it away if you have the purest, or if there are any other cards or something like that, but unfortunately you kind of get screwed up. Now this guy likes to armor shred you, it likes to wither you, which means it lowers your outgoing damage, and whereas the Warlock likes to just mass confuse you. And now I'm just trying to stack up as much of the fire damage, because the fire dots are really gonna start paying off when you can get that done. Again, one of the heads debuffs that completely, so you can't fire dot him or feeble him or anything like that. It's a queen apparently, so I shouldn't say him. But in this case, since I can fire dot him pretty good, that's what I'm trying to do here. And of course you can compare to. So this head, I believe, is the one. Well, it's still the armor one. The next after that can be the one that you can't stagger or something like that. Debuff. I like that card. That card allows everyone to auto attack. So if you have a ton of units that can auto attack, perfect. And I love that card. It empowers every single unit, including the lantern. So it can really stack up when you do that. And I think I just did that for the feebleness, because he's gonna now hit everybody with 8 in damage. So it will hit anyone, including your the guy in the front row. And it kinda chucks. 25 in damage. And that one allows the lantern to attack, so that's a good thing. That means you can start dotting fire damage. And now the fire is dotting up here. Yep. It's a big chunk of damage. Of course, if you can't get the barriers, if you're low on barriers, then you're a little bit screwed. Yeah, I'm down to like 4 barriers. I think I'm doing my best. Now you can shuffle those so you can pull another card. That's the difference between the bow too and the guild faction, is that you can, with the guild faction, you hold the cards and it shows up in your stash in the next turn. Here it recycles them and then you get the new card. So that's pretty much all I'm trying to do here, just get something good. Oh yeah, it does have an affliction card called Doom. Forgot about that. It's just not as gnarly as the Parasite from the Warlock. That will chew your guy up. And you just keep on having to expend a lot of resources to keep him up. Parasites don't care if you have armor, but a barrier will stop them momentarily. There we go. stacking it up again. It's going down there. So as you see, the fire stacks really pays off. That's why I'm so constantly eager to make sure that the lantern also get in a couple of parts now and then, just to give that fire damage to everybody. Sometimes it gets tough, especially when you start hitting those stacking exerted. Then it gets harder and harder and harder. Oh, there you go. All that stacking fire damage. That really did it. Now, I am going to check out another battle as well. That one's going to include the Arbalest, so you can see kind of how that stacks up. Now, I'm not going to showcase the perk, the other perk with the 50% power of crit damage. That's a little bit harder to do. You can certainly see that the crit damage is larger, but to count the exact amount depends so much about the crit base and also what kind of damage you did originally and stuff like that. It's a little bit easier to showcase the fact that it's firing when you're exerted. It doesn't seem to be based on stacks as far as I noticed. You get exerted, it fires. You exert it again, it fires. But if you have one of those boss creatures that multi-exert you, I don't think it fires that many times. Not that I notice over the many battles that I've done. So we'll see. Now, I'm not entirely happy about this beginning. I don't have a way of attacking up. So let's do that one. Now I can actually move up, so that's nice. So he's gonna fire on the back line, which means I should first put that one out. That way I covering him from them firing the back line. And then I'm just gonna do the easy trigger. And since I powered it, he fires. Like with all auto attacks and whatnot, you don't have the control. Obviously you would love to have shot at that guy, but he didn't. Now he's gonna be exerted, unable to do an auto attack, so you preempt the auto attack, I guess. But next time he's gonna have 2 times 4 attacks, so that is a little bit better. Now for this guy, I haven't empowered him, so I'm just gonna put the fading armor on it. And there you go, the attack. So, they are gonna attack him pretty hard. I am gonna empower him. So now you see 2 times 4, and that's because of the flurry one. And that is, so that's gonna be total 16 in damage. And I am gonna take 1 hit point in damage. Oh, I miscalculated that because it's 2 times 4. So it's reduced by the armor each time. Okay, good. Good. And now spend another 1 point. And we're gonna empower that one. He's gonna fire, they are both gonna attack. I am gonna take damage here, no matter what I do. He has 2, total 10, reduced 2, so 3. So I should just, what am I doing? I should just accept the fact that he's gonna take something here. I do wish I had another, let's see, another one. Oh, I could. is make him safe. And now I'm going to hit once. He's going to get exerted. And now his attack value is going to go up with 1 because he has that particular... Come on, I like it. There we go. So it's just the attack bonus plus 1 because he has empowered resolve, and I empowered it once. That gives him attack bonus every time he's exerted. That's why I'm using reach and slash. More damage exerts him. Yes, he doesn't get his auto attack, so that's like the negative. Not necessarily. I think that's... I don't necessarily think that's a good perk per se, but over time you will be able to stack up damage. Unfortunately, most battles are pretty much over by the time you have a decent amount. But again, some of the more sluggish mini-boss and boss fights, it adds up over time. And of course, if you have something like a support unit that can increase your armor value and things of that nature, then it just increases faster. That's it. Okay. And he's doing his multi-attack. And here we go again. There he is, going to attack him. We want to do that. We do want to do that. We are going to fire that one off. There we go. Stop him from doing anything. And then we're going to do another one. Can you please shoot that one? And you see it doesn't multi-attack. It just fires once. It's a shame that it doesn't do the flurry, because those are the amount of attacks that you have. But whatever. It is what it is. Let's see if we can get this one in. 2, 4 should be enough. Now he has 3 times 5. So that's a little bit better. No damage so far. No damage now. 2 hit points. That's a goner. Now, that's another effect that I wanted to show you too. Anytime you have an empowered, on the votive side anyway, anytime you empower it, anytime you attack with the lantern or lantern specific attacks like cards, it adds burning weapon to every single guy. That will stack up really, really fast. So we just gonna smack this guy. You see, he's burning up, he's gone. But I don't want to get shot. I take 1 damage for no reason. There you go. They're gone. So that shows you a little bit of showcase on a smaller scale what those particular perks do. There's nothing new with the Fire Maiden, but here you can see what I have. And the idea is to just feeble, pull some better cards with Spectrum Beam, at least 3 attack with 7 damage. Never had a chance to upgrade it, unfortunately. This one has the new perk, and you also have an additional perk. So this one has the Empowered Warlord. Empower the commander to apply Fading 2 attack to all other units in the zone each turn. As I explained, this one allows it to stack 1 attack for everything in that zone per turn. And since it decays half, so 1 each time, and after 5 turns you're gonna have 5 more attack power, and I'm gonna showcase that on the Arbalest. This one unfortunately didn't get this chainsaw, but I had the Blade Storm. So typically the Blade Storm will be a little bit more powerful. I do have 2 readiness. I don't know why, but I do have a couple of larger attacks, not really super large, as I will show you with a lantern. But field promotion, things like that. Again, I never pulled enough of the Dream Fruit because I had to continue healing myself in order to get rid of some of these. Most likely, I would not have 2 readiness. And, yeah. hopefully to get the chainsaw. Chainsaw can bring the armor down to negative, and then they take even more damage. I am running with the Arbalest. Arbalest, as I mentioned, have three different perks, I think it is. This one is the one that empowers for everyone. So for each empowerment, you get 50 more in crit damage. So anytime you crit them, unfortunately with the Fire Maiden, I never got that thing where you can target even though they're not staggered. Had I gotten that, that would have been even better. But we are going to showcase this. This one also get an additional perk of extra hit on its auto attack. So it's going to have 2 × 4 attacks. So that's pretty good. With this one, I get the critical aim. So for that turn, I do believe everything is considered 2 times attack power against weak points, plus the additional 50%, I do believe, because you can get some really gnarly attacks. This one is the easy trigger. That's the one that you want. As I explained earlier, that new perk where you auto fire when exerted is really not that good, because you are trading an auto fire with an exertion. This one is better. You gain a flurry and you get exerted. And with this one, sorry, that's not the right one. This one, you remove all exertion and you get rapid fire, all of them. So if we get the boss here that's going to have that mass exertion, if I pull the full quiver and I can afford to use it, I will remove exertion from everybody and I get rapid fire instead. And if I have enough point at that point, I'm just going to rapid fire as much as possible. Of course, if I get that guy that is immune to debuffs or get angry, we'll see how that looks. Some rapid release, really not the best of the haul. I wish I had a little bit more of the easy trigger and some of the more of the full quiver, because really what I'm banking on here is to have the commander increase the attack power, and through flurry then I would just get more and more multiplicable attacks. This is just a Vanguard. I am adding as much of armor as I possibly can. This is fading armor, so it's not like the knight, but since I only have 4 units and not 5, that's the major update. Unfortunately, I can't really have the diversity of a tank, a skirmisher, and support, right? So I'm just showcasing the new perks though. This one has the new perks of Empower Resolve. That one is actually decent. As long as you are empowered, then, as I mentioned, you get that stack in attack. Anytime you get exerted, like Breaching Slash, or in the case of this one, Devastating Cut, then you get, as soon as the exertion is gone, you get that +1 attack bonus that you can auto attack with. So this one helps. This one actually stacks up. And there are times where I've had 11, 12, 14 in attack, and together with this guy that can do like the war cry and encouragement, there's a chance that you will have a tons of attack power in the front line. It's just a little bit squishy. He doesn't come with his own armor, so he is going to have to armor himself, and that's really the only armor I have. The knight at least have a couple of cards that adds a tremendous amount of armor. And then if you had that smith, then she has a couple of cards that adds permanent armor for at least for the duration of the combat. This one also had the additional perk of Reservist, so as long as he is in a support zone, one card is going to cost less, and that's good. So Bladestorm would be 1, for example. Again, that's an awesome way of getting cheaper attacks. As far as the lantern, I really don't have good. I only have the light barriers. I wish I could have converted those. I have an upgraded watchtower, of course. The nice thing is that a lantern is empowered, and that is via this one. So I managed to repair the lantern heartstone, and that one makes it empowered from the get-go. I also pulled a card that I'm going to use, and hopefully I'm going to be able to pull it. As you see, I have a few, the Incineration, Beam Strike. I have a couple of decent ones. It's just that, yeah, that's the Hyper Beam too. So, it's my hope. Now, the one card, where was it? Isn't it showing here? That is odd that it's not showing. Am I missing it completely? Apparently I'm missing it completely. So I do have one of those Eve cards, and that Eve card, and for the duration of the combat, if I can use it, it's gonna be able to have the lantern attack every time. Now, when that does that, it gives fire weapon to every single shot or hit that you do. So that means that I will be able to stack fire real quick. So we'll see if that actually works. And as far, that's it. She didn't have any extra. That didn't have any perks. I really low on perks. Yeah, that's generally how it is nowadays. You don't have those extra 3 steps with the extra expeditions, so you don't really have a chance to pull that many perks. And that's it. So we're gonna see here. Okay, we're gonna get the Warlock. He can switch things around, so that's gonna be annoying. Plus, he has a lot of exertion. So this is gonna be interesting to see if we can get the exertion showcase. Now he has a couple of gnarly, nasty attacks that can destroy. And I'll be honest with you, it is not as durable. So what do we want to do? Are we gonna use... Actually, I want to Blade Storm him real good. So I'm just gonna use a reposition for that guy. There you go. He's up front. And unfortunately, I did not get lucky enough to pull a lot of things that do multi-empowerments. So there's a couple of cards. Fire Maiden has one. And then there's also one that you can pull for the Lantern that empowers all of you guys. With a Fire Maiden, it powers all except for her. With the Lantern one, it's all of them. And it's fairly cheap. Upgraded cost 1 for the Fire Maiden, and it's 1 in cost upgraded for the Lantern. And that way you can have all of them empowered right off the bat. Now the only one that's empowered here, and the one that we definitely want to empower, is that guy. So we definitely want to make sure that we empower him right away. Boom. Now he's ready. Now I'm going to start Blade Storming right away. Just to start getting some hits in on this guy. There'll be 3 hits. Not that special. Next, I'm going to do the flavor one. We're going to empower something else. That one is good to start empowering so he can start building up attack. He's going to give himself a 48 in shield. So the more attacks we can get in now, the better. We probably want to spend. So I have a tech. You see those techs here? One of them, every time I spend a favor, it also gives me command for the same amount. So I'm going to first link him, start a little bit of fire. Let's see here, field promotion. Do we want to boost him up before I do the breaching? I don't want to recycle that stuff yet, because he sends out these gnarly parasites. And if he does that early, that's not fun. Let's start him up with a little bit of that. Let's spend another point. We can also get that. That will help in the future. So let's get another card. And then we're going to get a freebie here. So what do we get? In the Radiance, that's not bad for 0 cost. We can boost him up. And we can do attack bonus 3, fading attack bonus 3, draw cards equal to enemies in the zone. That's good. Let's do that. And we got ourselves a protect. Gonna fade down a little bit, but let's start building this up. Now I can do a lounge and breaching slash. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's start staggering up and build up some attack power. There we go. And I think that's gonna be it for now. So he's gonna give himself 24 in barrier. Now there are a couple of ones that can negate barrier. There are some decent ones that can do that. Now that's a 24 in attack. He can take that, but I'd rather not he did that. So we're gonna start with incineration. And then we can do that one. I definitely want to do the beam strike. That's going to get critical aim for him, so that's 2 times 8. So now you see, since it's empowered, he keeps adding more attack power. He got more because he was exerted and empowered. That one is empowered. That's just going to add more crit damage, so that's going to really help when we crit him down. As you can see here, it's 2 times 8 now. I want to flurry him so it can be 3 times 8, or 3 times 9, 3 times 10, etc. Beam strike, that's going to add a lot of stagger. And now we want to build that one up. And then we want to empower her. That way, if she throws a card, she's going to get those melt dust. Those melt dust is actually a lantern card. And since that's a lantern card that activates this one, I just want to pull... I also have what's called this one, the repetition engine. Anything with a cost here. Like you see, those temporary charges will stay until you go to the next turn. So if you pull these and you have a bunch of, say, bandages, then you can heal up real quick by just using a bunch of bandages or anything else that has attack. As long as you have both command points and as long as you have charges, you can keep on using it because of the repetition engine. So I am just going to use this one as much as possible. And let's do that one too. And now I'm going to take it. That's negated by a spell armor. And here we go. It's down. So we want to spend another point and do that. So that will send out 4 cards with lower cost. One happened to be that stupid parasite. Get rid of that for now. We're gonna get out the watchtower, so that's gonna help build up fire damage. But we also have a melt here that we want to use. So we're gonna use the melt first. Now you notice he has 99 in armor. That's special with this warlock, is that you have to get this guy down, the 7 hits, and then the armor is going to go away and you can start doing full damage. So that's a couple of hits right there. Rapid fire. Very nice. Look at that. Now that's all gone. Now everything is going to be gravy. Let's see here. Let's spend that. That gives me another command point. Let's do a beam strike. That will give us 2 more command points. So I can actually get rid of all this. I am going to load up. You see right here? That indicates the kind of stacking fire. Right now it has 83 in burn fire, just for me using the Lantern Card, giving fire damage to all this that just keeps on stacking. And this is one way of using both the Lantern and synergy with everything else. Also, because of that guy and some of the stacking stuff, I now have, as you can see here, Burning Weapon, attack bonus, a fading attack, later magazine, and empower critical. So every hit I do with this guy now is going to be empowered. So status shot, that's an easy 0 cost. 39 in crit. Now the fire damage is that high. That means that as soon as I reach here, he's done, or she's done, technically. Now, I got the easy trigger. I'm not going to use it yet. Could I use it? No, I'm not going to use it yet. So we're going to do this one. Let's see. 42 in crit. Now it's dead. And that's just, it's going to melt away now. So, here we go. Oh, I have to go to the next turn. Let's just use up these. Oh, let's devastate. Cut him too. Let's see what kind of damage we're going to get here as crit. That was 75 in crit. He has 17 hit points left. He's going to burn out. And there we go. He got one hit in. And there I got the rekindle on. Oh no, he got his barrier up before he burned out? That's cheesy. Okay. Fair enough. You're gonna be that cheesy that I'm gonna just feeble you. Lounge that down. He's gonna probably exert all of us. He didn't burn out. That's so cheesy. It hit his barrier though. Rude. Okay. Is this one, so he has one where he can just mix everybody around. So the one in the back row gets in front row. Now do notice, he's gone. I get in one hit in, he's gonna be gone. He's gonna be gone if I shoot. But he's not gonna exert my guys. Yep, he did. And he's gone. I always get the attack before he can mix me around and exert. So, that was gone. No one died. This one ran at, I think it was a Dissension 2, if I'm not mistaken. No, I actually did do this. Did I run a Dissension 2? That's a little bit low for that. Yeah, maybe not. But here we go. This is the showcase of some of the perks. So that's it. You have a good one. Next video is gonna be something like a As We Descend 101 on Votive and Guild, just to give you just a rundown, a deeper look at the different components and tactics. I hope this was informative, and I hope you have the greatest summer ever. And as I always say, until we meet again, adieu.